The morning sunlight painted the kitchen gold, catching the steam rising from Elena's coffee mug. 7 years of marriage. The number sounded lucky, but it felt like a fragile thread stretched too tight. She smiled faintly at the table set for two. Silver cutlery glimmered beside white roses. Everything was in its place just as Daniel liked. He'd always said he admired her attention to detail. "You make everything look effortless," he used to whisper, his hands resting on her shoulders. Now, even remembering that felt like trying to hold smoke. Elena moved through the kitchen with quiet precision, setting the wine on the counter, lighting a single candle. She'd picked the same playlist they danced to at their wedding, the one that had played when he cried softly against her hair and promised, "I'll never hurt you." The song made her chest tighten now. She told herself tonight would be good. Maybe they'd talk, laugh again, remember who they used to be. She wanted that more than she dared admit. Outside, the sound of a car door closing jolted her. She checked her reflection in the oven door. Makeup perfect, smile rehearsed, eyes tired. The door opened. Daniel stepped inside, crisp suit, the faint smell of cologne and city air clinging to him. "Something smells incredible," he said, smiling that smooth, practiced smile. "I wanted tonight to feel special," she replied. He loosened his tie, kissed her cheek, and glanced at the table. "You always outdo yourself. It's almost intimidating." She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "I just wanted it to be perfect." "It already is," he said, voice low. "Don't ruin it by worrying." She turned away to carve the chicken, pressing the knife down a little too hard. His tone was gentle, but it left bruises invisible to the world. Dinner passed in muted conversation. He spoke about work. She nodded in the right places. The candle flickered between them like an interrogation light. 7 years, Daniel said finally, raising his glass. "A lucky number, isn't it?" "Depends who you ask," Elena murmured. He smiled, not catching the edge in her voice. Or maybe he did and enjoyed it. The music shifted to something slower, softer. As she reached to refill his glass, her eyes caught on the cuff of his shirt. A faint smear of lipstick, barely visible, but not hers. The color was too pale. Her hand froze midair. The wine trembled in the glass. He looked up. "Everything all right?" She forced a smile. "Perfect," she whispered. And yet, as the candle guttered and the music played on, something small and certain inside her cracked, quietly, like ice underfoot. The next morning carried the stale quiet of unspoken words. The candle from last night still sat on the table, a puddle of hardened wax where fire once lived. Daniel had left early, kissing her forehead on his way out, a gesture so practiced it barely felt human anymore. Elena moved through the house in silence. The walls seemed to hum with last night's unease. She started cleaning to fill the quiet, wiping away traces of dinner, scrubbing the faint wine stains that refused to disappear. When she reached his study, she hesitated. He never liked her in there. Dust shimmered in the light slanting through half-drawn blinds. His desk was immaculate, papers aligned with military precision. The air smelled faintly of cologne and something colder, secrecy. She began dusting, careful not to disturb anything, until her cloth brushed against the edge of his tablet. It blinked awake. A flash of her reflection passed over the black glass before words appeared on the lock screen. "Last sync incomplete." Her fingers trembled as she swiped. She didn't mean to pry, not really. But something inside her whispered that she already knew what she'd find. In the recently deleted folder, one fragment of a message remained, half corrupted like a wound that refused to close. "She knows," 2 words. That was all. Elena's breath hitched. The room seemed to close in around her. The tablet slipped slightly in her grip, landing with a dull thud on the desk. She stared at the phrase until her vision blurred. She knows. Who was she? And what did she know? Her thoughts spiraled. A faceless woman, the lipstick, the late nights at work, the secretive calls he took on the balcony. But another voice, quieter, more dangerous, told her she was overreacting again. "Daniel says you imagine things when you're tired." When he came home that evening, she said nothing. She served dinner. She smiled. She pretended. But every time his phone buzzed on the counter, her eyes flicked toward it. He caught her once. "You okay?" he asked too casually. "Fine," she said, forcing her voice steady. Later that night, when he fell asleep beside her, she lay awake staring at the faint glow of his phone charging on the nightstand. The reflection of the screen pulsed against the wall, like a heartbeat. She thought of those two words again. She knows. And for the first time, Elena wondered, what if the message wasn't about someone else? What if it was about her? By the end of the week, Daniel had become unusually attentive. Flowers on the counter, surprise lunches, a softness in his voice that didn't belong to him anymore. It felt like a performance, a man rehearsing sincerity. On Friday, he told her they were going out. Something special, he said, his tone carefully light. A client dinner. You'll love it, Elena wanted to say no. The words stayed trapped behind her smile. The restaurant glowed with golden light, the kind designed to flatter skin and blur truth. Crystal glasses shimmered, the murmur of soft jazz humming beneath the polite laughter of strangers. Daniel led her through the crowd, his hand resting on her back just a little too firmly, steering her like a possession. At the table waited a woman, early 30s, elegant, confident, the kind of beauty that didn't need to try. Her eyes flicked up, meeting Elena's with practiced ease. Elena, this is Mara, Daniel said smoothly. She's the one I told you about, new at the firm. Mara's smile was warm. I've heard so much about you. Likewise, Elena replied, her voice calm but her pulse betraying her. Dinner began like a script. Work stories, harmless jokes, glasses clinking. Yet beneath the laughter, Elena caught patterns. Mara finishing Daniel's sentences, the small looks they exchanged, the way his hand lingered near hers on the table, as if by accident. Elena had seen this before. The first time it had been Rachel, the assistant, then Claire, the marketing consultant. Each time Daniel had turned her suspicions into flaws. You're imagining things again, Lena. You get jealous so easily. He'd said it kindly enough to make her feel guilty. But tonight, the kindness was gone, replaced by control disguised as charm. Halfway through the meal, Mara laughed at something Daniel said, resting her hand on his wrist. It was brief, innocent to anyone else, but Elena saw it, the quiet intimacy of familiarity. Everything okay? Daniel asked, noticing her silence. Of course, she said, smiling tightly. Just a bit tired. When Mara excused herself to take a call, Elena leaned in, her voice low. She's close to you. Daniel's expression didn't change. You're reading into things again. It wasn't anger in his tone. It was disappointment, the kind that made her doubt her own eyes. When they left, the night air bit cold against her skin. Daniel took her hand, fingers cold, grip unyielding. I hate when you look at people like that, he murmured. Like what? Like you're searching for something that isn't there. Elena didn't answer. Because for the first time, she feared he might be right. Not because it wasn't there, but because it was hiding somewhere much closer than she thought. Sleep came shallow that night, more like drifting than resting. The laughter from dinner still echoed faintly in Elena's mind. Mara's voice, Daniel's charm, the way they moved around each other like two people who'd rehearsed the dance long before tonight. Sometime after midnight, she woke. The house was too quiet. A soft creak sounded from downstairs, delicate, deliberate. Elena sat up, pulse thudding in her ears. Daniel? She whispered. No reply. His side of the bed was empty. She slipped out, bare feet touching the cold floor. The hallway stretched long and dark, the air heavy with stillness. Another sound, faint, metallic. The front door. She descended slowly, gripping the railing to steady her trembling hand. The living room was bathed in thin moonlight. The front door stood slightly ajar, letting in a chill wind that stirred the curtains. She froze. The lock dangled uselessly. Daniel? She tried again, louder this time. Only the hum of the refrigerator answered. Her eyes scanned the room. Nothing out of place, nothing missing. Yet the air carried the weight of intrusion, of something unseen brushing past her. She shut the door, locked it twice, then stood staring at it for too long, waiting for proof that she wasn't losing her mind. When Daniel finally appeared at the top of the stairs, shirt half-buttoned, hair tousled, he looked more annoyed than alarmed. What are you doing up? He muttered. The door was open, she said, her voice small. I heard something, he sighed, descending slowly, every step measured. You forgot to lock it again, didn't you? I didn't, she whispered. It was Elena. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You've been tense lately, maybe you were dreaming. The way he said it, soft, certain, made her doubt the memory even as it replayed in her head. By morning, he'd turned it into a joke. You and your midnight mysteries, he teased, sipping coffee, eyes glinting over the rim of the mug. She laughed weakly, but her fingers shook when she stirred her tea. Because that morning, when she passed the front door again, she noticed something small she hadn't before. A faint smudge of mud on the handle, and Daniel's shoes by the mat were spotless. The morning after the unlocked door, Elena booked an appointment with Dr. Miriam Holt, her therapist from years ago. The drive there felt like moving through fog, reality dulled at the edges. Every sound seemed louder lately. Daniel's footsteps, the ticking of clocks, her own heartbeat echoing like a reminder she couldn't silence. Dr. Holt's office hadn't changed. Same lavender walls, same faint scent of chamomile. It had once been a refuge. Now it felt like a confessional. You look tired, Dr. Holt said gently, setting down her pen. I haven't been sleeping, Elena admitted. Things at home feel off. Off how? Elena hesitated. Doors unlocked. Voices I think I hear. Daniel says I'm imagining it. Dr. Holt's eyes softened. You've been through a lot, Elena. Stress can manifest in ways that feel very real. Elena nodded, but something inside her twisted. It was the same tone Daniel used, calm, patronizing, steady as a leash. As they spoke, fragments of the past seeped in. The miscarriage, the endless nights afterward when she'd woken up screaming his name, the pills Daniel had insisted she take. She remembered him sitting by her hospital bed saying, "You just need rest, darling. Don't overthink." When she left therapy the first time, she'd believed him. She'd believed everything. After the session, Dr. Holt sat alone, typing notes. The camera of narration pulled back, a quiet observer in the room. Her words appeared on the screen like the ticking of a clock. Patient exhibits signs of emotional suppression and external gaslighting. Husband remains controlling influence, recommending safety assessment, possible emotional abuse. She paused before writing the final line. If patterns persist, Elena may be in danger, not from herself. But Elena never saw that note. At home, Daniel was in his study when she returned. Therapy again? He asked, not looking up. Yes, she said. I needed to talk. He smiled faintly. About what? Your dreams? Or the door? Her stomach nodded. You don't believe me. I believe you believe it, he said softly. That's what matters. It was worse than disbelief. It was control disguised as compassion. That night, Elena sat in the dark, replaying Dr. Holt's calm words. Stress can manifest in ways that feel real. She wanted to believe that. She tried to. But when she passed Daniel's study before bed, the light was still on, and she could swear she heard him whisper a name. Not hers. Mara. Sleep eluded Elena again. Daniel's voice saying Mara lingered in her ears like a splinter beneath the skin. She told herself she must have misheard. Maybe it was a work call, another late-night email. Still, the way he'd said it, low, intimate, didn't sound professional. It sounded remembered. By morning, Daniel had already left for the gym. The house was too quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the whisper of rain outside. She moved through the rooms on instinct, like a ghost retracing her own life. In his study, everything was neat, precise, as if he'd vacuumed his secrets. Still, something about the order itself felt suspicious, too careful. On the shelf sat a locked drawer she'd never noticed before, small enough to hide something, large enough to matter. She found the spare key tucked behind a book spine. Her pulse thudded. The drawer creaked open. Inside lay a stack of papers, receipts, and old photos, mundane at first glance. But beneath them, folded carefully like something sacred, was a photograph. Elena froze. Daniel stood in the picture, younger, his smile the same but sharper, almost feral. Beside him, Mara, her hair shorter, eyes brighter, arm looped through his. The photo was dated 10 years ago. On the back, scrawled in ink, Daniel and Mara, forever. Her breath caught. Forever. Her mind scrambled for logic, and maybe it was coincidence, another woman with the same name. But as she searched through the rest of the drawer, the illusion shattered. A newspaper clipping slid free, yellowed with age. Local woman presumed dead after car crash. Fiancé questioned, later released. The headline blurred as her eyes filled. The picture below was unmistakable. Mara, Elena's hands trembled. She reread every line, the details, the date. The vague mention of conflicting statements and unresolved evidence. Daniel's name appeared once, buried deep in the article. She sank to the floor, clutching the photograph. A cold numbness spread through her chest. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was fear. Had Mara really died? Or had she vanished, and somehow returned? When Daniel came home that evening, Elena had already placed everything back exactly as she'd found it. The drawer locked, the key returned, the air scrubbed clean of her panic. At dinner he smiled, poured her wine, spoke about work as if nothing in the world were wrong. "Elena," he said suddenly mid-sentence, "you've been quiet lately." She forced a smile. "Just tired." He reached across the table, brushing her wrist with his thumb, tender, deliberate. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" She met his eyes. "Of course." He smiled, but his gaze lingered too long, as though he knew she was lying. That night, as rain lashed the windows, Elena lay awake listening for the sound of the front door. Because if Mara had once disappeared, maybe not everyone who left Daniel's life did so by choice. The storm that began that night didn't stop for 3 days. It clawed at the windows, howled through the vents, and filled the house with a restless hum that refused to die. Daniel worked late every evening, claiming the firm had deadlines. But Elena had started noticing his shoes, mud-streaked, damp no matter the hour he came home. On the 4th night, she decided to follow him. He left at 9:42 p.m., the exact minute he always did when he lied. She waited 5 minutes, then slipped into her coat, the storm's wind pressing against her like a warning. But Daniel didn't drive far. His car stopped at the end of their own street. Then the headlights blinked off. He walked back. Elena's heart thudded in disbelief. She crept behind the trees until she saw him slip into the house through the side door. Quiet. Practiced. He hadn't gone anywhere at all. She waited, counting her breaths, then entered through the front door, careful not to make a sound. From the hallway, faint noises rose beneath the floorboards. A dull thump, then a scrape. The basement. Elena had always hated it. The air thick with dust and old paint, Daniel's rule that it was his space. But tonight she moved toward it like something pulled her by the spine. The door creaked open. Cold air rolled up, dense and chemical. She descended slowly, one trembling step at a time. The sound grew clearer. The dragging of metal, the click of a latch. When she reached the bottom, the smell hit her first. Not rot, but formaldehyde, sharp and sterile, like a morgue pretending to be clean. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, swaying slightly. Beneath it stood Daniel, his back turned, a heavy frost-lined freezer beside him. He was wiping his hands with a rag, deliberate and calm. "Daniel?" He froze, then slowly turned, a smile blooming too quickly to be natural. "Couldn't sleep?" She tried to see past him. "What's in there?" "Old samples from the lab," he said. "Work stuff. You don't work with chemicals," she whispered. His smile thinned. "Curiosity isn't always healthy, Elena." For a moment, neither moved. Only the bulb swayed between them, throwing long shadows that tangled across the walls like veins. He stepped closer. "Go back upstairs," he murmured. "You'll catch cold," she obeyed. Not because she believed him, but because something in his eyes told her the truth might already be colder than anything inside that freezer. Elena didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the freezer, heard Daniel's voice echo in the dark. Curiosity isn't always healthy. By morning, she had made a decision. She wasn't going to confront him, not yet. She was going to watch, listen, record. The small audio recorder she found in her desk drawer had been part of an old interview kit she'd used years ago for a writing course. It still worked. She slipped it into her coat pocket that evening, heart pounding as if it already knew what it would capture. That night, Daniel announced he was going out again. "Meeting a client," he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "Another late one?" she asked, forcing calm. He smiled faintly. "You know how it is." She waited until he left, then followed at a distance. The storm had passed, leaving the streets slick and silver under the streetlights. His car turned toward the industrial district, a maze of warehouses and quiet docks. He parked outside a derelict building. Elena's hands shook as she pressed record. Inside, through a crack in the rusted door, she saw them, Daniel and Mara. Mara's hair was shorter now, her face harder but unmistakable. The dead woman was very much alive. "You shouldn't have come back," Daniel said, voice low, coiled. "I had no choice," Mara snapped. "You promised me the money, Daniel." "You owe me," he laughed, a sound colder than she'd ever heard. "I owed you nothing." "You were supposed to disappear." "That was the deal." Mara stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You left me in that car. You made it look like I died." "Because you did, Mara," he hissed. "For the world you did. And I made sure they believed it." There was silence, thick, suffocating. Elena pressed closer to the door, her pulse thrumming in her ears. Mara's next words came out broken. "You collected the insurance. You framed me for your debts. And now she knows, doesn't she? You're a perfect wife." Daniel's expression hardened. "She found something she shouldn't have." "But I'll fix it. Fix it," Mara whispered. He took a step forward. "You should have stayed dead." Elena's breath caught as Mara stumbled backward. Something metallic scraped the floor. A struggle, muffled shouts. Then a heavy thud. She nearly screamed but clamped her hand over her mouth. The recorder kept running, capturing every heartbeat, every movement. When the noise finally stopped, Daniel's voice returned, calm again, almost gentle. "You were always too curious too, Mara." A door slammed. Footsteps faded. Elena slipped away into the night, the recorder burning in her pocket like a live thing. By the time she reached home, dawn had begun bleeding through the sky. She replayed the tape once, just enough to hear his voice, clear, undeniable. Her hands trembled as she whispered to herself, "He killed her." Again. But somewhere deep inside, another voice answered, "Now he'll come for you." The car was found at dawn, half submerged in the marsh outside town, headlights still glowing faintly beneath the mist. A single vehicle, no driver, no witnesses. Detective Harper stood beside it, coat pulled tight against the wind. "Pull it out carefully," he told the team. "We're not contaminating this scene." The sedan emerged, dripping and silent. Inside, blood spattered across the dashboard, the passenger seat slashed, the faint scent of formaldehyde clinging to the air. And on the steering wheel, impossibly deliberate, was Daniel's wedding band, glued in place, gleaming like a taunt. No sign of Daniel. No sign of Elena. Audio transcript, local news. October 12th. Reporter. Police have confirmed the vehicle belongs to Daniel Graves, a senior consultant at Meriton & Co. Sources close to the family say the couple had been under marital strain prior to his disappearance. Neighbor Mrs. Lowell. They were polite, quiet. She'd bring us cookies sometimes. But lately, she looked scared, eyes always darting, like she expected someone behind her. Detective's notes. There's blood on the steering wheel matching Elena Graves. None from Daniel, no body. Wedding band affixed with superglue. Symbolic message, freezer and basement empty. Smell of chemicals consistent with preservation agents. No recording device found at the scene, but one was missing from the couple's home office. Elena's diary was found days later, tucked inside a hollowed-out book on her nightstand. The handwriting was shaky at first, then steadier, as though she'd finally accepted what she was writing might be her last words. "He doesn't sleep anymore." I can hear him pacing downstairs. Sometimes he whispers her name, Mara, like a prayer he doesn't deserve. I think he knows I recorded him. He's been checking my phone, my drawers, even my dreams. If something happens to me, the truth is in the tape. It's always been in the tape. Detective Harper closed the diary, exhaling slowly. "There's something personal here," he murmured. "This isn't just a crime. It's a confession war." Interview excerpt, Colleague unnamed. He told me once that marriage is about control, not love. Said if you lose one, the other dies too. I thought he was joking. By the week's end, search teams had scoured the marshlands. No Daniel, no Elena. Only fragments, a torn scarf, traces of blood leading toward the waterline, then vanishing into nothing. But that night, as officers loaded evidence into their van, one of them froze. Inside the glove compartment, overlooked until now, was a small memory card taped beneath the dashboard, labeled in neat handwriting. For when the truth finally sinks. Harper pocketed it carefully. "Get this to the lab," he said. He didn't notice, just outside the police tape, a figure watching from the trees. Still. Silent. Rain began to fall again, soft and endless. It took 3 months for the lake to give him back. The fishermen who found Daniel's body thought it was driftwood at first, pale, swollen, tangled in reeds. But when the light caught the gold of his watch, they called the police. Detective Harper stood on the shore that morning, the fog thick as gauze. The divers moved silently, their reflections ghost-like on the water's surface. When they pulled the body free, the silence deepened. Daniel Graves, male, 38. Wrists bound tightly with nylon cord, mouth sealed shut, not with tape, but with paper. Wedding vows. Each line water-stained, words blurred but still legible in places. "To have and to hold, till death do us part." The coroner's report confirmed no sign of struggle, as if he hadn't fought. Just surrendered. News of his death tore through the media like wildfire. The story had everything: love, murder, betrayal, mystery. Talk shows argued over who the real victim was. Some painted Daniel as a broken man pushed to madness by his unstable wife. Others whispered that justice had finally found its own way to the surface, but Elena was nowhere to be found. Excerpt, True Crime, Podcast, The Graves Case. Host: the lake where Daniel Graves was discovered lies only 5 miles from his home. Police still haven't confirmed whether his wife Elena is alive. But one thing is clear. The evidence recovered from the car, the tape, and the diary tell a story neither side can completely own. Detective Harper sat in his office long after the press left. The memory card found in Daniel's car played through his mind on a loop. He'd watched it once, just once, and never again. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. Daniel's face under dim basement light, his voice calm, deliberate. "I thought I could bury what I did to Mara, but Elena, she sees too much. Maybe that's love, to destroy the only witness who truly knows you." At the end of the recording, another voice broke through, faint, trembling. "Elena's. Then you've finally confessed." The screen had gone black. A single sound followed, the slow, deliberate click of a lighter. Months later, Harper received a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, Daniel's body floating in the lake, the vows still clinging to his lips, and in the corner of the image, blurred by mist, the faint outline of a woman standing at the water's edge. He turned the photo over. On the back, written in delicate, steady handwriting, "They say love makes you blind. I say it makes you dig." Harper stared at the words for a long time, then looked out his window toward the fading sunset. The case was closed, but the silence it left behind, that was the part that never ended. End.